Right, so this is the lab number 6 in week 6 BIT20803 database system. Okay. Before we proceed with with this week lesson, okay, I would like to revisit our first 5 lessons previously. We start with the XAMPP installation and PHP MyAdmin, okay, and then you explore this software. XAMPP is a free web server, and it also provide the SQL for manipulation, for creation and also manipulation of the data. So this is very much important when you are going to connect the XAMPP database with the web page. Okay, so it makes a web based system. So in the PHP MyAdmin, you learn how to create the database itself, the tables, and then you insert the data. That is, you create a new data. Then you can view the data. Okay, so when we viewing the data, it goes to the you need an SQL, okay, to see what is your data or what data is stored inside your table and also database. So you learn this you learn this during the past 5 weeks. Okay, majority we use the SQL base. Okay, we do not use the template or the wizard itself. So we learn how to use the SQL, and you know a variety of the SQL statement to whether we have two types to create the table and database itself, and the second one is to manipulate the data. So manipulate the data is actually we query the data what we have to produce certain report. We have a select, we have a where, alias, concatenation, distinct count, and the list goes on. Okay, you know how to backup the database and the table, to download, to export, to import the database, the table. And then we also learn about the arithmetic, how we use the arithmetic expression in SQL to retrieve the data. And then we also can limit the rows, sort. Okay, sort the rows from the view. And then last week we performed the character, number, and date function in the select segment. Okay, we also perform the calculation on data using functions, remember, and also we modify individual data items using the functions. Okay, so this is what have you learned so far, okay, in 5 weeks, and we continue the lesson this week. Okay, using another important function named as group. So the statement will be group by. So this is a function. So at the end of this lesson, you will be able to identify the group function that is provided, and you can use the group function, and then to include or exclude group rows by using the having clause. So you will learn clause today. Okay, there is a group by and also having. Group by and also having. Okay, so again, this is our case study. We use this case study HR along the semester, along the lab session. Okay, right. Group function. So group function operate on sets of rows to give one result per group. Okay, to give one result. So actually, you can imagine that you have a list of records, but you want to have only one single data. So you can see that, for example, you want to know what is the total number of salary, what is the total of salary of all employees they have. So it is one of the group functions. So I have a total. Then we have maximum, for example, minimum, average, and various. Okay, this is what is performed under the group function. Okay, so we have, you want to see one result from a set of rows, one set of records. So this is the function of the group function. So this is the list and types of group function we have. So each of the functions accepts an argument. This is the argument. Okay, so the following tables shows us the types of group function we have and the syntax. Okay, so you can see from here we have a function of average. Okay, let's see. Okay, you have average. Okay, and then the average value of n, then they ignore the null values. Okay, so they can count, ignore the null values, they escape. Null values not necessarily zero. Null value sometimes is empty. So logically they cannot count empty, right? If zero is okay, they can count, but when they see the null, then they escape it. So next is a count. Count number of rows where expression evaluates to something other than null. Okay, count all selected rows using the star, including duplicates and also rows with null. So they count even if it is duplicate, that there is a duplicate, that still they count. Count means that they count how many record in that row. In that rows. Okay, so that next is a maximum. Okay, maximum. Okay, here we have maximum. Oh, my pen is not function. Okay, the maximum, we obtain the maximum value of expression, also ignore the null values. Then we have minimum, in opposite, maximum, minimum, standard deviation, and also the sum. Okay, the sum, and also variance, sum and variance. Okay, so this is 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 7 types of function: average, count, maximum, minimum, standard deviation, and sum, variance. Okay, right, so this is the group function. Right, the syntax, you need to remember the syntax. Okay, select group function and from which column, from which column, from table, from which table, where, and order by. So this shows us the condition. We want to strict the data, but the basic syntax is this. Okay, select group function. Which one? Which type of group function? For example, you want to find the average, or you want to find the maximum, minimum, and so on. Okay, so this is a group function types, and from which column, from which column, okay, from which table. Okay, so they have the principle or the rule. This thing, if you use this thing in the group function, it makes the function consider only non-duplicate values. So if you add this thing in this syntax, so it will carry the original rule for this thing, that is, they only consider the non-duplicate values. They only take the non-duplicate values, or makes it consider every value including the duplicates. So if you again, I repeat, if you use this thing, so they will takes only the non-duplicate, but if you use all, select all, makes it consider every value. So somewhere you can put it here, okay, before the group function, whether you want to take it all or this thing. Okay, but by default, if you do not write anything, then it consider that you use the all. Okay, you want to check, you want them to check all values. The data types for the function with an expression argument may be character, varchar, number, or date only. Okay, all group function ignore null values to substitute a value for null values. Okay, use the NVL2 call this case or decode function to deal with these null values. Okay, to replace value for the null values. Right. So here the example and practice. Okay, you can activate now your PHP My Admin, and then you can try this. Okay, in your desktop. Okay, there is note there. The average, summation, variance, standard deviation function can only be used with the numeric data. Okay, max and min cannot be used with LOB or long data types. Okay, so basically this is for the integer, and also decimal also can, but it means that this group function can be used with the numeric data type only, but not with the long data types. Okay, all right, you may start run the SQL statement and see the output. Okay, you can try. Select average salary from salary. Where job ID like, okay, REP, representative. Okay, actually you can try the first two lines. Okay, select average, okay, select average salary, okay, from employees. Okay, so this is the average of all employees they have. Okay, so when we restrict the data, okay, so we add some more condition where job ID like, okay, so we add some constraint that we want to know the average for salary for certain job ID. Okay, so it gives us this one. Okay, yeah, itu representative. You can check from the employees job ID. This part, okay, from here. This give you the definition. So they are from previous SQL. Okay, they only want the job ID. They only want to take the average salary for the job ID with the REP, okay, representation. For example, HR representative, okay, marketing representative, public relation representative, like this. So any job ID that contain the REP, okay. So we are combining the last week like operator, okay, like function to be included in this today lesson. Okay, so there is how we mix together all the no, not all, various functions, okay, to achieve our goal, to display what, to obtain what value, okay, from the database. Okay, So that is for the average. You can try the next one, sum, to get the total value. Select sum salary. Okay. From employees. Okay, so you can try go. Okay, they provide this value 96,000 about. Okay, then we add more. We add condition where the same job ID. Okay, like okay. So they returns to us to 270,000. Okay, some of their salary. Okay, so you can try for the rest, minimum and also maximum. This is for the minimum. Okay, select mean salary from employees where job ID the same as previous. Okay, so this is the value, and finally the max. Maximum. So the maximum salary they have for this job ID is 11,000. Okay, plus. And for the minimum just now, lowest value they have is 6,000 only for the minimum salary under the job ID which representative. Okay, so I hope you can try and obtain the result. Okay, so I continue. Okay, there is another practice you can try. Look, now the code become more complex as you include more things inside it. So from here you can see that we want to get the average, and then we want to rename the column. Okay, also they want to find the maximum, okay, minimum, and also sum. Okay, submission as a total salary from employees. Okay, so this is how you expand your query, okay, to make your report become more complex lah. Okay, so this is like this. Okay, select. So we want to find average, maximum, minimum, and also summary submission. Okay, from employees with the same job ID like previously. So this will be the output. So you can see that the report will be better looking, kan? So we know that column present what? Okay, average salary, maximum, minimum salary, and also the total salary. This is when you are going to make the report like this, then it makes your SQL become more complicated. Okay. Okay. So next we try the second exercise or practice. Select minimum hire date and maximum hire date. Okay, can we do it? Because this is a date. Okay. Look, even it is success. Okay, so it works with the date. Okay, data type. they can find the minimum, the earliest hire date they have in data is in 1987. Okay? And the recent hire date is in April 2000. Okay. Next is a count function. Count function. So we want to check, okay, what is the number of rows in the table, selected table. Okay. The count star returns the number of rows. The count expression returns the number of rows with non-value for what we request. And count distinct expression returns the number of distinct value. So now you can see that the argument, okay, become more complicated when you add more things. Okay, this count all, remember, star for all expression is what column you want. And then the distinct, okay, expression returns the number of distinct non-null value. Okay, so let us try, okay, this practice. Okay, select count star all from employees where department ID equal to 15. So they want to know how many employees or staff, okay, resides in a department 50. Okay, department 50. So they check for you. So there is 45 employees under the department 50. So this is how the count function is used, okay, to find a number of rows for certain column. Okay. Okay. Next, okay, we want to try this part. We want to know the specific expression, okay, to count. Show the query box and then put in the code, write in the code, and only 34 employees, okay, obtain the commission. Okay, only 34 employees obtain the commission in this case. Next, number 3. Okay, we try this statement with the distinct, count distinct. Okay, select count, okay, in bracket distinct department ID. So it means that they perform the inner part, okay, the inner part of the nested. Okay, when we have bracket means that we have a nested, then they deal with this one first. So they only check the non-duplicate value, okay, and then they start to count, not count first and distinct, no. So they perform the inner part first. Okay, they return only 11. Okay, only 11. What if we drop the distinct? Okay, just now is 11, right? See, if we do not use the distinct, they have 106, okay, value in the department ID. Okay, they return the number of department, okay, 106, but actually they only have 11 department ID, okay, because this contain duplicates. see the difference. Okay, any questions so far? Count. Okay, so next is a group function and null values. Null values. Okay, so we have two here, two situation. A group function ignore null values in the column. And the second one, the NVL function forces group function to include null values. One we want to ignore, and the second one we force to include the null values. Okay, so let us check what is happening. What is the result given by the PHP admin? Okay, select average commission, okay, from the employees without considering the null values. Okay, we have a null values in the commission. So let us check first. Employees. Okay, employees. Okay, this is the employees. And then the commission. Okay. So we have a null value in the column commission. This is only the part of. Okay. Some employee have a commission, some not. Okay. We go back to the SQL and go. Okay. So only we have the average of commission is 0.2. Okay. So but this one they exclude or they ignore the null value. Ignore the null value. So how about the other one? They use a NVL to include the this one. Okay. They use the NVL functions to include, to force to include a null value in the query. Okay, they put like this, select average, then in bracket NVL commission PCT and 0. Okay, so it means that they proceed, okay, they execute the inner part first, then they do the average. Okay, let's have a look what will be the output. 0.07. What does this mean? What value actually they takes for the null values? So you can think about it. Just now the value is 0.2. 0.2. Okay. If we omit this part, this one 0.07. Okay, 0.2. So the number is smaller, and we should think how do they replace the null values with what value actually they use in the null values using the NVL function. Okay, right. Next is to create groups of data using group by. Okay, so if you include a group function in a select clause, you cannot select individual result as well, unless the individual column appears in the group by clause. So you will receive an error message if you fail to include the column list in a group by clause. Now we use a where clause, then you can exclude the rows before dividing them into the groups. Here, to perform this one, you need to include the columns in the group by clause. Okay, but you cannot use the alias using this group by. Okay. Okay, again, the description. All group functions have treated the table as one large group of information. So at times, you need to divide the table of information into smaller group. So you can use the group by clause to make this separation. Okay, so the syntax will be select column group function, okay, from which table, where condition, and then group by expression, order by which column. Okay, so that this is the syntax. Okay. So the application will be like this. Okay, so select. Okay, let us bring this part, okay, to remember the SQL syntax. Okay, so this is the original syntax. Okay, so this is the select. Okay, select and department ID represent the column. Okay, and this is a group function. The previous we learned about the group function, average salary. Okay, from employees we group by the department ID. So what does we want actually? Okay, so in this case we want to find the average salary for certain department ID. Okay, and then we group it. Okay, so let us check the output. What will be produced by this SQL. Okay, select department ID, average salary from employees, and group by department ID. So you can see that they show us the department ID, look here, and also what is the average salary. So it means that for they go and look for each department ID. Remember just now we have 11 department ID. Okay, and then for each department ID they can they can calculate the average for each department ID. Previously, when we just used the average salary, we use where, right? Where department ID equal to, for example, 50. So we just can know only one specific department ID. But now we want to see all department ID with their average salary. So we cannot use directly the average salary function. So we need the group by function. So using the group by, then we can reach this result. Okay, so we can see all department ID with their average salary. So if I change, for example, sum salary, so it becomes like this. This is the sum salary. Okay. What if we want to see the max? Yeah. Bila kita nak tengok semua? Sebab yang tadi, perasan tak? Exercise, which exercise? For example, we use like this kan. Select average salary from employees, for example, where department ID equal to 50, for example. So you just can see only one department. Betul tak? So kalau you nak tengok semua department macam mana? Di situ fungsinya group by tadi. Boleh? Okay. So yang mana tadi ya? Yang ini. Contohnya you nak count berapa kan, tapi boleh nampak untuk satu department saja. Department yang lain macam mana you nak gabung, katalah you nak tengok department sekian-sekian kan, macam mana you nak buat aware ni? Tak boleh. Kan? Jadi sebab tu adanya fungsi group by. Jadi lebih mudah sebab ada satu masa kita nak tengok juga senarai keseluruhan. This is represented by this query lah statement. Okay. So the query will be like this. Select department ID, sum, salary, max salary. You boleh tambah lagi. You can extend the SQL. Which column you want to which group function type you wish to calculate. Okay, from employees, and we group by the department ID. So we have this one. Okay. Cuma tadi dia note, dia kata tidak boleh column alias. Let us try. Boleh tak? Salary. Boleh tak? Tak ada masalah. So boleh. Okay. Total salary. And then maximum salary. Okay. So now you can see, okay, as a manager, for example, you can see, we have 11 department, and then they can show what is the total the division between each department, what will their contribution of the salary. Okay, and then from here maybe we can find which one is the largest, which department, okay, contributes the largest total salary, maximum salary, okay, and so on. So this is how actually you can relate that the report is used by the decision maker to make some certain decision. Okay, but importantly, this result is correct. Okay, and then it can be used as a report. Okay, next. Sampai mana tadi? Using the group by. Okay, so this is the description. The select clause specify the columns to be retrieved. Okay, department, and then the average. Okay, the from clause specify the tables. Yes, then the where clause specify the rows to be retrieved, because there is no where here, and all rows are retrieved by default because no where statement is included in this SQL. Then the group by clause specify how the rows should be grouped. It should be grouped based on the department ID in this case. Okay, the rows are grouped by department number, so the average function that is applied to the salary column calculates the average salary for each department. So from here you can see that they when they perform the SQL, then they go to the table employees, okay, and then they look for column department ID. Then they group it, okay. After they are grouping, then they perform the average for column salary. Okay. Right. Grouping by more than one column. So the case is, now you are required to generate a report that display the total salary that is paid to each job title in each department. Okay, so the employees table is grouped first by the department number and then by the job title within the grouping. Now you can see the SQL become more complex. Okay, select department ID, job ID, because what? Okay, they want you are required to display the total salary. Okay, and then job title, job ID. You want to display this one for then in each department. So 3 columns are in action now. from table employees, then we need to group it by department ID and also the job ID. Finally, they order by the job ID. Okay. Okay, you can try this SQL. Okay, they want to see these three columns. Okay, department ID, job ID, and also what is the salary total. Okay, so this will be the output. Okay, so in the department ID 11 0, okay, we have two types of job ID, account AC account and also AC manager, okay, with the sum salary. Okay, the total salary for job ID that exists in a department ID, this, okay, 110. Okay, it means that only these two appears in or exists in under the department ID. Okay, so this will be the output. Okay, so we have more example in the group function. Okay, you can try. For the first two practice, this is to select any column or expression in the select list that is not an aggregate function, must be in the group by clause. Okay, you can see that, for example, the first one, select department ID. We want to count the last name from employees, where we group it by the department ID. We want to count the last name. Okay, in the department ID. Okay, from the department ID. Okay, this. Count the last name. Maksudnya cari apa ni? Only one in the department 10. Is that correct? Only two employee in department 20. 6 employee in department 30 and so on. Or you can try department 10. Select name from employees where department ID equal 10. Okay, returns 1. None. Okay. This one is correct. Okay, we have 2 employees in a table, in department ID 20. Okay, so this is how we check it, whether the this one returns a correct result. Okay, ID 60. Okay, right. Next is a select. Next practice, select department ID, job ID, count, last name. So they expand the SQL by combining the by retrieving also information of job ID and also department ID. And then they group it by the department ID and also the job ID. Let us check and execute it. So they show to us in the job ID because okay, so we have this one. They give us department ID, job ID, and also the employees. How many employees, okay, work under the job ID? This, okay, in the department ID 10. Okay, only one staff with the marketing manager ID, okay, in a department 20. So only one marketing manager work under the department ID 20. One marketing representative are in a department ID 20. Okay, 5 clerk in a department ID 30. One, what's PU? I forget. Manager, what manager in a department 30. Okay, and so on. Right. Next, okay, using the having clause, having. Now we add one more clause, that is a having. So the statement having displays the department numbers and maximum salaries for those departments with a maximum salary greater than 10,000. So here you can use the group by class without using a group function in the select list. Okay, if you restrict rows based on the result of a group function, you must have a group by clause as well as the having clause. Okay, so like this, select department ID, maximum salaries. Maximum is a group type function. From table employees, we group by the department ID. Having max salary that is larger than 10,000. Okay, what does it mean? We do not use the where here because we cannot use where with the group type function. Okay, but we want to. Kita nak tapi tak boleh guna where. So that's why they come with the having clause. Having biasanya memang dengan group by lah. Okay, so this one. So looks how it perform. Okay, in the SQL. Okay, example. Okay, so in department 20, then they can count only the employees which receive the average salary 8,000. Okay. Having. Bukan where tak boleh pakai. Kita tak boleh guna where dengan group type function. Tak boleh guna where dengan average ke. Kan? Biasanya kita terus je where department ID equal to something kan? Where salary equal than something. Betul tak? But now we want to okay. Where okay, salary larger than something, for example like this. Biasanya kita akan guna macam ni. Tapi tak boleh sebab sekarang kita nak where salary ni maximum. Kita nak gunakan ni group type function. Yang where ni tak boleh support ni. Sebab tu kita guna having. Clear? Ya, maksudnya tak boleh nak guna where minimum. Lepas tu salary 10K for example. Jadi it is replaced with this having function, having clause. Okay. More example. The example display the job ID, and also total monthly salary. Monthly salary. Okay. Ingat keyword dia. The keyword is monthly salary for each job that has a total payroll exceeding. For each job that has a total payroll exceed 30,000. Okay. So from employees where job ID not like, okay, I repeat, okay, group by job ID having some salary greater than 13,000. Okay. Sebenarnya sampai sinilah. Lepas tu dia minta sort tu baru tambahkan ini. Tapi ni yang the ultimate aim lah. Okay. Keyword dia nak for each group dia nakkan total, for example ini. Nampak tak? For each group sekarang dia nak for each group. Kita nampaklah for each job ni dia ada group dia kan. Tu yang kita nampak dia sebagai each job ni each group lah, group of job. Sebab satu job ada multiple kan? Multiple employee. Kalau employee, kalau dia kata for each employee, dah tentu tu single. Betul tak? Kan? Kalau job ni, dia ada group dia. Sama macam department pun ada group dia. Sebab tu kita dah boleh ada hint lah dekat sini. Total salary for each job. Job ni group. Ada kumpulan dia. Kalau dia kata total monthly salary for each employee, tak ikut kes ni memang dia punya salary tu monthly. Jadi dia tak tanyalah. Okey, kalau ini employee maksudnya tak guna having. Tapi sebab ini dia nakkan salary, okey. Tapi untuk job jadi kena guna having. Okey. Select job ID, summary, sum salary from employees where job ID not like certain, group by job ID. Yang ini kalau kita remove tak pasti ni. Dia tak nak yang representative. Oh, ya ni, this one. Ada. Dia nak exclude sale representative. Betul? So every ni dia bagi hint tau. Sebab tu yang ini untuk ni. Okay. This one for this. Okay. Let us execute the SQL. Okay. So now they can see the payroll for the club, for example. So this is the amount. Okay. This is a payroll is actually the total salary. Okay. For club. For apa ni, tak ingat dah. IT program and so on. Okay. Di mana total where the total salary is greater than 13,000. So they only show the sum salary that exceed 13,000. Okay, and then they sort by the salary from lowest to highest. Okay, so the next part, okay, so also we have this facility that we can nest the group function. Okay, it can be nested to a depth of 2 functions. This is the maximum. They can only nest up to 2 functions. Okay, so the example give calculates the average salary for each department ID and then display the maximum average salary. Okay, so they group the department ID and then they want to find the average salary and what is the maximum between the group of department ID. Okay, this. It should return the result, but I think we need to check again. It returns a problem here, invalid group function. When we try with the oracle, it can return the result. Okay, so maybe we can try to fix it. Select max average salary. Okay, from do you obtain the same result? I'm not sure whether this I'm not sure this one whether it works or not. Previously I tried this code in Oracle and it works. Okay, but not sure. Still got an error. So I left this one first. Okay, for let me check this. What is the problem? If you have the solution, then you can share. Okay, previously it is okay, but this one is also cannot work with. Okay, so alright, so that is our today's activity and lesson. You have a lab task number 6. Okay, the second last task. Okay, next week uh, next week should be your cuti kan, mid sem kan, midterm break. Okay, for 1 week together with the celebration. Okay, so we will continue a week after that, lab number 7. That will be the last assignment for you, so that you can focus with the project. Okay, with the project. Yeah.